Chapter 4 La Rochelle, 30th of April, 1945. It's nerve-wracking work, infiltrating an Ananurba stronghold. At least it is, when you can't just kill every living creature you meet. I don't want to be here. The good God knows I've worked hard enough to avoid open confrontation with the occult forces on the opposing side. Thwart them? Sure. Wherever I can. But this war has been one long fucking atrocity from start to finish. If that becomes open warfare between the talented on each side as well, it might replace the First World War as the war to end all wars by becoming the war to end the planet. Some things can't be left uninvestigated, though. The Allied forces are pushing back the Germans and their Axis step by step, and all of France is finally liberated. All of France, that is, apart from this one little corner, a single city out on the western coast, complete with U-boat submarine bunkers, has been left alone, isolated and besieged by British troops. But it doesn't add up. Plane drops are getting through each week, despite Allied dominance of the skies, and there's just no push to recapture La Rochelle, to free the citizens and defeat this last Nazi stronghold. So, someone had to come and have a look, and that someone ended up being me. The reason became immediately evident. The shimmer covering the entire city is visible from miles away. Of course, you'll only see it if you're talented. The effect, though, that works on everyone. A persuasive magic to say, hey, this place isn't worth it. Leave it be. Carry on. Nothing to see here. They can't cast a don't look here big enough to make people forget La Rochelle exists. But this is the next best thing. An impressive working. I'd appreciate it more if I wasn't terrified as to where they are garnering the energy to power it. Luckily, there's a limit to how much you can pack into a working soda fuse covering such an expansive area. If they want people to look away, they can't make it an impermeable barrier or a wide-scale alarm system. At least I hope not. There's been no sign so far that I have triggered anything like that by hopping over the city walls. No one's attacked me. Even more impressively, I've not attacked anyone else either. Believe you me, that's not easy. The stench of the Ananurbe is thick in the city, both woven into the working itself and present in the dark tendrils that permeate the collective psyche. Local inhabitants huddle indoors day and night, except where forced into service by the Nazis. The effect of the dark magic the German occultists are working, whatever it is, has crept into their minds, dirtying their dreams, disturbing their days. The few faces I see look gaunt, haunted. Just living here is a form of torture. Sadly, torture is a specialty of these particular brand of talented fuckers. So, despite my more impetuous nature, I make my way through the town without slaughtering every man I meet wearing that ridiculous grey uniform that hides a heartless killer. Perhaps on the way back I'll indulge. First, I need to find out what the hell is going on here. It has to be something big. Has to be. And the magical signature, that stench of dark power that pervades this place, all seems to emanate from the docks, dragging me towards it. The huge metal door of my destination looks like it's been lifted straight from a submarine, complete with locking wheel in the centre. I can't help wondering what they've got behind there that they feel the need to keep it under such airtight, precisely regulated conditions. It probably means I should favour caution. I've done enough of that for tonight, though. There are limits to everyone's self-control. Is it a waste of talent? to explode the door inwards, crumpling the frame and burying it into the concrete wall opposite? Probably. Still, there's anger and grief aplenty inside me from all we've found out about what these Nazi shitheels have been up to these last few years. I'll burn some of that for a while. And then, 2 doors later, I don't need to burn any of my stored up emotions anymore. There's plenty to fuel my rage right here. It's a lab of sorts. That bastard hybrids the Ananurbi love to make. Rows of gleaming metal, test tubes, scientific equipment, esoteric symbols, glowing cursed artifacts, runes of power, the mixture of science and magic that seems to sing to their twisted little souls. And then there's the experiments. There's a particular horror to finding a dead friend. It's worse to find them dismembered, labelled up in their respective parts, floating in formaldehyde. Even more so when it's more than one. Cannabis, Fahalan, Sweet Simite. People who welcomed me into their homes with rites of hospitality that spanned back almost longer than their extended lives. Sure, they weren't human, but considering what's been done to them by my species, I'm not sure that's exactly a negative to hold against them. Gentilax and kobolds, gnomes and nens. The good God knows I'm tempted to get a message to summer or winter to let King Oberon and Queen Maeve know what's been done to their denizens in our world of late, even if some of them have been so long absent from the land of the Fae as to hardly count as subjects to either anymore. Except, then their ire might get raised, and they might decide to do something about it, which would probably be worse even than the fucking Nazis. It'd be a close call. Some had just dissected torsos or heads, bobbing about in the preserving fluid. Those are the lucky ones. There are others whose suffering isn't over, not by a long shot. Male Lugaroos, werewolves, have their skin stripped back to reveal their distinct musculature, their flesh rippling through a forced change back and forth. Rictus, agonized grins exposed by the bottom half of their faces being naught but gleaming bone. A dryad bleeds sap into a funnel, where it's whipped away into a machine. Maybe they're analysing it, seeking to replicate her ability to stimulate crops. Or maybe they just like making her bleed. Then I find the children. 2 centaurs, a boy and a girl. Age hard to tell because of their suffering, but not yet teenagers. Close enough in features to be siblings at least, perhaps even twins. They've been halved, separated off into their 2 parts. The horse limbs kick weakly. Their faces stream with tears, their innocence and childhood stripped away from them just as completely as their lower bodies. I can't tell what's keeping them alive. They're surrounded by technology I don't understand and aglow with magic I don't want to. Tearing through the invasive wiring and the unholy wards, I pull their bodies back together. It does nothing. The minute the stasis is broken, they're gone. I've no regret. There's no way I'd have left them suffering like that a moment longer. Actually, that's a lie. I've lots of regrets. Regrets I didn't find out about this and get here sooner, early enough to save them. That I regret. If I didn't just have to kill 2 kids, didn't just see their suffering slowly fade away in relief along with the light in their eyes, the next thing might have been the worst thing I've ever seen. Stories are emerging of exactly what horrors the Nazis have perpetrated against their fellow humans for the flimsiest of reasons. The truth of that's already been clearly demonstrated by what I've seen. But humanity has always been good at convincing themselves that anyone who isn't categorically human, or even categorically the same kind of human as us, doesn't deserve equal treatment. What I'm seeing now, they can't use those sort of excuses. Have you ever had a friend who's been simple in both their manners and perhaps a little in their mind, but who could not be lovelier? That lack of layers, of pretense, that purity of being exactly who they are at all times only makes time spent with them a delight. Gregory Noble is such a friend to me. He lies on the lowest rungs of the talented ladder, little more than a hedge mage who delights in using his little power to help bring bumper crops to his neighbours and perform minor miracles for his village without them ever knowing. He's a nobody in the circles of talent, but his door has always been as open as his heart, his fireside warm, and a meal and bed ever available. There's not much left of that man now. They've sawed the top of his skull off, exposing his brain, and have shoved electrodes deep into the grey matter. His hand is outstretched, flicking constantly, producing a tiny flame each time the electricity fires into that part of his cortex. The muscles around his eyes spasm, flickering in time with the appearance and disappearance. His eyes themselves hold nothing but pain. A pain that's consumed the simple, homely man I call friend. Shutting off the machine stops that pain, but it doesn't bring back Gregory. He's gone. All that's left is to close those eyes for him. He drifts away at last. I've lost so many friends over the centuries. Failed them. Watched them die. Often because of me. Their faces haunt me every single night. Gregory's going to join them. He'll be in good company. The best. All dead because of me. To say I'm angry now is an understatement. I'm a maelstrom, composed of purified rage, and I am ready to tear the roof off this accursed place. The next door crumples before my fury, the metal liquefying and then fleeing from my path, dissolving before my white-hot temper. It's fair to say I'm ready to vent. And here's my chance. In front of me stands a talented. I hardly have to even look because he's clearly the creator of the shielding covering the city. Strands of dark energy pour out, then back in through him, twisting together, forming circuits through which the pollution streams out across the near sky. He's a scrawny character, his face sunken and grizzled, with pepper grey hair that might be from age, or might be from the shit he's seen and done. His SS uniform looks at least a size too big for him. Maybe it's from losing weight. Maybe they're running low on supplies. I don't give a damn. He's not going to need it for much longer. He's saying something, barking syllables at me, first in German and then in French. I speak German fine, but I can't understand what he's saying. Can't really hear it. All I can hear is the sound of my blood pumping in my ears, my heart hammering in time to the throb of my pain. He tries to throw up a shield, but his power in a major working right now that's draining his energy. I'm not interested in finesse, just in results. I throw a condensed ball of talent straight through his shield and into his chest, then trigger it, shredding him, exploding his viscera outwards to paint the walls, floor, and ceiling. Seeing that red liberally spread across the whole chamber allows me to calm down from the red I was seeing previously. With the goose-stepping fucker dead, the barrier will slowly come down. La Rochelle will probably fall in the next few days. Good. When it does, this place will no longer exist. I'm going to raise it from existence. First, I need to see if I can find anyone else alive in here. To save them if they're prisoners. To wipe them off the face of the earth if they're jailers. Eventually, I find a secured bunker. It's twice as thick in terms of the poured concrete as any of the other rooms, and the heft of the locked door puts all the rest of the steel work and security to shame. There's a placard, a reference number on the door, and a set of notes on the desk. Sadly, no one to set on fire. It looks like the Nazi scumball I blew up was the last man standing in this base. The rest have all fled on U-boats for the Americas based on the first set of notes I pick up. Our man wanted to finish up the tests he was running before grabbing a submarine due to dock in a couple of days. I cannot tell you how glad I am that he'll never make it to the shores of Argentina. Part of me wants to just tear the door off again. But there's some mighty powerful talented out there, people and creatures, and some of them don't like humans, even when they haven't been captured and experimented on. Whoever and whatever is in here might not take too kindly to me when I come through the door. I need to know what I'm about to find. There's a reason why, in a facility designed for experimenting on talented, this room's built to an even higher specification. It suggests whoever is inside is the living equivalent of a highball bouncing bomb. Knowing who or what I'm walking in on might make the difference as to whether I walk back out again. I leaf through the files, and the name rings a bell. Aisha Kandisha. A name I've encountered in travels through the Middle East. A demon, the boogie woman of Morocco, an evil jinn who brings death and misfortune to all. Except according to their notes, that's not the case at all. According to this, she was a Moroccan noble from Al Jadida. Born in the 9th century, she left her area after she used her femininity to seduce some raiding Portuguese pirates, leading them straight into a trap. The Arab world might have been considerably more enlightened than Europe at that point, but not enough to save her from her reputation being ruined. Faced with scandalized murmurs and evil-eyed gestures thrown up behind her back, Aisha Kandisha headed east. The next set of documents are the bits the Nazis have pieced together about her once she left Morocco. As far as I can see, she ended up in what's now Lebanon and fell in with the Druze, an offspring of Islam still alive today, although considered heretical by many Muslims. Surprising amount of similarities with the beliefs of my fellow good people from my first life. Dualism, equality between men and women, reincarnation. Interesting. The next sheet sets out their primary target, the reason they took her prisoner. Apparently, once accepted into the Druze's inner circle, she ended up the guardian of the Arb al-Hayat, the water of life. So that's how she's still around over 1,000 years later. The notes are pretty dry, but horrific nonetheless, listing all the ways they've tortured her, trying to get information out of her as to the location of the source of eternal life. There are some universal truths that can be held as objective in our world. Water is wet. Fire is hot. Any sentence prefaced with, "I don't mean to be rude, but definitely will be." And everyone breaks under torture. Except she didn't. Nothing they've done to her has made her crack. And they've done a lot. Fuck me, they've done a lot. Apparently, she heals instantly from any injury, something they've put categorically to the test. They sliced her to pieces until she resembled a pile of pulled pork. They superheated her skull until her brain boiled within. They hooked her up like Loki himself and poured steady drips of acid into her eyeballs, set to drop in just as they regrew. For 3 months solid. Eventually, they decided she'd magically sealed her tongue and moved on to other, equally horrific experiments. Trying to grow clones from her by slicing her down to minuscule pieces. All of them died except the one that regrew. Timing how fast she would regenerate after the incinerator she'd been dropped into got switched off. And other such charming examples of just how twisted human ingenuity can be when we really set our mind to it. By this point, I've read enough. More than enough. I pull the door and half the concrete surrounding it backwards. I don't want to risk hurting her. She's been hurt more than enough. Inside the room, once more lit by harsh artificial lighting and covered in machines to monitor and inflict agony on the inhabitant, stands a man, holding a head. Turns out the talented arsehole I painted the walls with wasn't the last Nazi alive in here. This one's no magic user. He doesn't glow when I look. But he's a monster, nonetheless. His white robes might be intended to mark him as a man of science. I just see a creature of pure darkness. He's polishing the base of a severed head with a rag. Based on the noxious smell emanating from it, I guess it's some form of acid. Perhaps he's trying to inhibit the woman's ability to regrow, to allow them to package her up for a cruise under the Atlantic to the shores of South America. Perhaps it's just another sick experiment. I don't really care either way. I flick a ball of talent through his forehead, dropping him like a stone. Him, I couldn't care less about, but I leap forward to catch the tumbling head. There's no way I'm letting her hit the ground. She's been through quite enough. Turning the head to look at me, I see her eyes are open. They're hard to look at. Their dark depths are marked by what they've lived through for the last 5 years, according to the charts. Yet despite that, there's a fierceness there, a power and a fury that her strong carved nose can't hide in shadow. She looks every inch the Moroccan princess, and every inch a warrior, despite the indignities that have been visited on her. Her expression blazes, burning a question she can't vocalize. Damn hard to do that without lungs and vocal cords. It's clear, though. I know the answer she needs to hear. They're dead. He's dead. The Nazis are losing. The war will be over soon. We're leaving. Her eyes close, deliberately slowly, then reopen. An acknowledgement. A thank you. A single tear rolls down her left cheek. She doesn't need to say more. I turn my back on the dead body and the horror chamber where they've kept her for so long. As we walk away, I toss a ball made of all my remaining talent backwards over my shoulder. I can practically hear it humming. It'll stay like that for a few minutes while we clear the facility. Then, this place is getting razed. No one is ever going to find that research, ever. Without a backwards glance, I carry Aisha Kandisha out of this hellhole, away from all the horrors the Anunnaki wrought on her. Time for her to see the light of day once more. Time for the Druze Queen to be free.